Hello, hello there. Welcome back to Branded. I'm your host, Sarah, and I want to start today with something you already know, but probably haven't said out loud in a while. You know what you're exceptional at, not in a vague, like aspirational way, but very specifically. You know the work that belongs to you, the work where time sort of moves differently, where the thinking comes really easily and the output is genuinely good and you feel like the most capable version of yourself. You know what that work is for you. So, what I want to ask is how much time are you actually spending doing that work? Not in theory, not like in your ideal week, but in reality, on a Tuesday, in the middle of a launch week, on a day when everything is technically running, but you're also answering questions that your onboarding sequence was supposed to answer and making a mental note about the thing you need to fix before your next launch. So, how much of that day is actually yours? You have the work that only you can do, the work that requires your thinking, your judgment, your specific understanding of your clients, and your offer and the problems that you solve. Work that nobody else in your business can replicate because it comes from something that's authentically yours. And when you have work that technically needs to happen, but doesn't require you, such as checking automations, answering onboarding questions, adjusting your sales page, manually stepping in because it's faster than fixing the underlying issue. Most founders treat these as two categories of work: important work and less important work. The kind you prioritize and the kind that you sort of fit in when you can. But that's not what is actually happening, right? This so-called less important work is constantly interrupting the important work. And the interruptions have become so frequent and so normalized that honestly, you've stopped noticing how much of your work is happening in the gaps of your day rather than in an uninterrupted focus that actually produces your best thinking. So you're not underperforming, you're being interrupted by your own business constantly. And you've gotten so good at managing these interruptions that you've started calling it a productive day. There's a version of this conversation that I'm sure you've heard before. How to find your zone of genius, protect your peak hours, do your most important work when your energy is the highest. Stop trying to be a morning person if you're not a morning person. And none of those conversations are wrong. They're just a little bit incomplete because here's what that conversation assumes. It assumes that the problem is self-knowledge, that you just haven't figured out when or how you work best yet. And once you figure that out, you'll unlock some new level of performance. But you already know when you work best. You've known this for years. Maybe it's the early morning, maybe it's late night, maybe it's in long focused time blocks, maybe it's after a workout or after your second cup of coffee. You know when that time is for you. So that's not the conversation we're having. Your peak hours, the hours when you're most capable of doing the work that only you can do, those are often the same hours when the business is the most active, when purchases and client questions are coming in that maybe need to be checked on, when launches are running that might require your attention in like 17 different directions. So you're in your best hours, but you're spending them doing the wrong work. And it's not because you don't know better. It's because your business hasn't been built in a way that protects you from having to do this. And it's easy to nod along to this concept without really feeling the full weight of it. So do a little like visualization with me for a minute. Think about the last time you had a genuinely focused stretch of time to do the work that you're best at. Not like stolen minutes between tasks, not the hour that you like miraculously carved out before you opened your inbox, a real uninterrupted block where you were fully in it. How long ago was that for you? And when it happened, what were you able to produce? What did you have the space to finally think about? What became possible in that space that doesn't become possible in those gaps between everything else that you're doing? Now, think about how many of your peak hours, when that kind of thinking is most available to you, are actually going towards things that don't technically need you. Checking, monitoring, managing, right? Being the safety net for a business that hasn't been built to catch itself. That's the real cost. Not your time, but the quality of what you're producing in the time you have. Because the work you do in sustained, focused attention is categorically different from the work you do in the fragments between interruptions. It's deeper, it's more creative, it's more specifically you. And it's the work that actually moves your business forward in ways that matter the most. And right now, a significant portion of that capacity is going towards supervision instead of creation, towards maintenance instead of growth, towards holding the business together instead of building it into something that holds itself. I do want to push back a little on the productivity, zone of genius, peak hour conversation. They all have a subtle assumption built into them that the path to better work is optimizing yourself, getting clear on your strengths, protecting your time more aggressively, saying no more often, being more disciplined about how you structure your day. And those things are helpful, but they're all treating you as the variable, as the thing that needs to change. But what if the variable is your business? What if the reason you can't stay in your zone of genius isn't because you haven't figured out the right morning routine or the right time blocking system or the right way of saying no? What if it's because your business keeps interrupting you because it's built in a way that requires your interruption to function? Your automations fired correctly every time. If that happened, you wouldn't be checking them. If your onboarding answered the questions that it's supposed to answer, you wouldn't be fielding those questions during your peak hours. If the back end of your business ran the way it was supposed to run, your best hours would actually be available for your best work. This isn't about optimizing you, it's about building the business so it stops consuming the parts of you that are the most valuable. And it's not that you never think about the operation side of your business once it's built to sustain itself. The difference is when you decide to tap into that side of your business, it's by choice rather than necessity. You look at something because you're curious about it or because you want to improve it, not because it needs your attention or it'll fall apart. So, your peak hours, whenever that is for you, are actually spent doing work that requires you. Strategic thinking, creative work, client delivery that only you can do. And the business is running all while you're doing that. Purchases are processing, onboarding is delivering, emails are sending. And that's not a fantasy version of your business. That's what actually happens when the infrastructure is built properly, when the business is designed to carry its own weight so you don't have to carry it yourself. So your zone of genius isn't a time of day or personality type. It's not something you unlock by waking up earlier or going to bed later or finally finding that productivity system that works for you. It's what's left when the wrong work stops taking up the right hours. And that's a structure problem. And structure is fixable. So the question worth sitting with, before you start optimizing yourself, I want you to ask a really honest question. If your business ran properly without your constant involvement, what would you do with your best hours? Not what you think you should do with them, but what would you actually do? What work would come out of you if that work actually had space and focus and sustained attention that it really needs? Because that work exists. You know what it is, you know what you're the best at. And right now, it's competing for time with a business that hasn't been built to stop needing you so much. So you're not underperforming, you're not underdisciplined, you haven't failed at finding your zone of genius, but you're definitely being interrupted by the very thing you built. And the fix isn't to wake up at 5 a.m. It's building the business so your best hours finally belong to your best work. That's it. That's the whole secret. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Share it with a business owner who feels like they are just drowning in busy work from their own business. Maybe this will help them see it differently. And of course, rate and review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, this isn't about optimizing yourself or your schedule. The real problem is somewhere else entirely. And structure is fixable. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.